So I don't know if you ever heard that saying, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to sustain a village. And so I've learned these things, and once you learn these things and then you come from the people that have been most affected, only thing we can do is be the change we want to see, and that's all I try to do. We're interested in economics and our health, and we're also interested in our education and the conditions of our community. So we all come in here collectively. We may have a different focus, but it's all collectively together for us to work, build better communities.
All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Woke Up West Virginia, where we are toting Hope Corps here, practical, progressive Hope Corps. It's an honor today to be with Dr. Smith. The speech you gave at the Interfaith Conference was the big divine neon sign to actually go ahead and just bite the bullet and start this podcast. So, if you would like to start out, would you tell us a little bit about your current projects, things that you would like people to know about?
Well, I am Dr. Shanequa Smith. I am a restorative practitioner, and all my work centers are rooted in joy, education, and connecting people to their desired opportunities. Because when people feel heard and validated and safe, they can learn. And when people learn, they can do better. And when people do better, they become self-sufficient. And so everything that I do is currently rooted in those core values. What I'm actually working on now, I'm in the thick of this weekend. Not only am I participating in Multifest, which is in its 36th year, I believe, of creating a festival space of cultural revalidation, also a space of joy and entertainment, and also education, a space that we look forward to every year. So usually I'm also a co-founder and co-collaborator of Black Voters Impact Initiative, where we embrace and educate, but most importantly, encourage people to be civically engaged. And so we're going to be participating in Multifest, which we are excited. That will be this weekend, August 6th to the 9th. And during this weekend, not only will I be participating in Multifest, but I also will be hosting Youth Civic Engagement Weekend. Now, I also do Black Policy Day, which every year is a day that we go to the Capitol. And this day is pretty special because it has been cultivated to let the average citizen that has not been taught anything outside of voting, that don't know how to, or may not been informed of how to talk to their legislative, or has not been taught the value of our lived experiences, how this influence policy, how this can influence how things change. And so when you help people to realize that what they have to say is valued, is safe, and that we can also take what we live with and put it into a space where we can use that to help guide those that may not have any experience in what we're going through in our communities, to use that to create policies and spaces for other people to benefit is a great thing. And that's what Black Policy Day is. And this year will be our 6th year, March 8th, 2027. You can go to Black Voters Impact Initiative Facebook and register. And this is just a space that we're learning. And not only do we do this because we know nothing changed in one day.
Right.
And so from Black Policy Day last year, like I said, last year was our 5th year, and we had some students. We have students and people that come from all parts of the states, and we had students in Martinsburg in Jefferson County who were unable to come because of the snowstorm. It was in February.
Yeah.
And they called me and their counselor and said, did they reschedule Black Policy Day? And we was like, no, we still had to have it. They were so
trying to schedule with a capital.
They were so disappointed, and they were still very passionate about coming to see their legislators. And me and Miss Teresa Holmes, shout out to Miss Teresa Holmes, and I always tell people it takes 2 sticks to start a fire. Many times we get discouraged because we don't have the masses or the resources that we're taught we need. But if you do a little research in history, you realize that our ancestors have done great things with very little. So Ms. Teresa expressed to me the youth concern, and this happened in February, and lo and behold, we're in August that we planned the Youth Civic Engagement Day. Now, why did we wait this long? Because we wanted to make sure our legislators were there. And a lot of times we are taught to go in January to go against the agenda that the legislators have made. But during the year, during interims, this is when they learn about laws. They decide what bills they're going to pass. And these are the times when they make the decision on what the agenda is going to be in January. So as citizens, it would benefit us if we get into the conversation early and start visiting them during interims and making sure they are informed on the decisions that they're actually making. So when January comes and they decide whatever bills they have, that these bills will benefit the majority of individuals because we have made sure we had created space to teach them. One thing I learned about lawmakers, they are regular people like us, they don't know. And if they are not living or experiencing the things that we are in our communities, how could we look for them to make the policies and the spaces that we actually need? And I know, especially individuals that are overwhelmed with how the policy is, how do we create space for them? And that's why each one, we all got to be our sister and brother's keeper. So those of us that can have space to go and educate these lawmakers, we shall, to help them do the work that we need to do in the state.
That is a lot of projects. So before we get too far into the podcast, where can people find more information later on? Because don't worry, I'll ask again at the end of the podcast if you don't catch it the first time.
Well, we do have for this event for our Youth Day, and it's a Youth Day at the Capitol, but truthfully this is during interims, which is August 9th through the 11th. And anyone can come to go to meetings, to go talk to their legislators, to talk about the water crisis we have in West Virginia, which is unfortunate, and I just learned about personally. But this is a time that as community members, so I mean, we can go on your legislative website so we can keep count, because this is not just a one-time thing, but this is going on. But as far as our Youth Day, we would love for people to come out and hear our youth and support our leaders that we're going to have for tomorrow.
That's nice. Tell me a little bit about so let's, if you're all right with it, let's talk a little bit about your story. It's pretty inspirational. I know that you're pretty open about it.
Well, I moved to West Virginia 25 years ago from Harlem, New York, with my husband and my son, trying to look to escape the conditions that we were born and raised in the crack era. Anybody that have any reference to that may have some familiarity of what youth went through during those days, which to this day was never addressed. But anyway, West Virginia was my only way out, and I would have been in California, Washington, Colorado, whatever open door had for me. And I'm grateful that coming to West Virginia has been a blessing for me to get some affordable housing and go back to school. I came out here with a high school diploma, to go back to school, and to also be exposed to things outside of my community and what I was programmed to believe about my situation, my life, and the cultural conditions that I have inherited. And long story short, after some exposure outside of my regular life community and education and being gifted to, I think the biggest gift that I had in life is being connected to my gift and purpose in spite of the conditions that I was born in or raised in. And I've learned this along the path of my education and lived experience and exposure, and realized the most important thing that most of us humans need to learn is, what is our purpose? What are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to be? And I think once all of us figure that out, you find your tribe of who those people are, and we continue to be a light in spite of the dark conditions that we are experiencing. And I know this may be different for people, because some people started to experience dark conditions when certain people got into office. But some of us have been experiencing dark conditions since we was born, and generationally. And unfortunately, epigenetically and culturally have inherited a lot of ways that have not been beneficial to us. But I do believe that we all have a light in us, and if we get some nurture and validation, which that's why joy is so important. A lot of our work don't consider joy, because that's something you should got when you was a little kid. That's something your family should have gave you. That's something. But we realize a lot of people didn't have that. And a lot of loving families, especially single families, didn't have the capacity to keep the lights on and give their kids validation and joy. So I don't know if you ever heard that saying, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to sustain a village. And so I've learned these things, and once you learn these things and then you come from the people that have been most affected, only thing we can do is be the change we want to see, and that's all I try to do.
I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So this actually brings up, because a lot of this podcast, the impetus to start this podcast came from my personal burnout. How do you stay in the fight? Like, how do you sustain that joy? How do you keep moving forward?
Well, should we be fighting or should we be building? And I think there's different theories of change, and I think some people have the capacity to go out here and fight and do this fighting, and some of us have the capacity to build and restore. And as I said, I'm a restorative practitioner, so my theory of change is mostly protecting people and restoring people and teaching people how to resist and survive in conditions that we cannot change. Because if you don't believe me, I'm sure you can see in these days, that years that we just presently had, many people have been fighting for decades for rights that we have seen disappear in a matter of months. That people been for decades. And so it makes you think about, some people are born in a situation, just like we all know it takes two legs to run a marathon. There's nothing hard about that. If you want to run a marathon, you need 2 legs. Everybody know you need to run, right? And if life depended on you running on a marathon and you didn't have 2 legs, how you gonna make it? Now, we can give you a wheelchair. We can maybe give you some crutches. And maybe give you a prosthetic leg. But we all would realize you would need some type of support to carry on and succeed what is required as a marathon of life. And I realize this marathon of life, many of us may have what physically and chronologically qualify us, but sometimes emotionally and mentally, and even just your capacity, you never was built to even run a marathon. So just like we can give people that physically need assistance, how do we give people that emotionally or mentally or culturally need that assistance to run life? And many a time our work don't make space for that. And so I know how important it is to make space for those type of spaces for individuals. So it's not really about me. I know we're hungry, we got to pay our bills, and it's important for us to take care of the now, but if I don't help you learn how to sustain yourself in the long run, sooner or later my efforts is going to create what we call that burnout.
Yeah.
Because the need is going to continue to grow. Because we're not helping the people become self-sustained, we're just developing, fighting the people that's creating this harsh behavior, but they're going to keep doing it. They're not going to stop. I mean, generationally, from what my grandmother, my mom, and what I've been through, I don't see any other way but to learn how to navigate and protect myself from the things that unfortunately I have to deal with. Especially being a black woman, I shared this, it just came to mind. I went down to John Henry celebrations in Talcott, West Virginia. Very interesting experience for myself. I don't know if you know the history of John Henry. African-American man that worked himself beyond what a machine was and kind of worked himself to death to prove and try to save the space of individuals, of keeping people jobs. And I went down there and I didn't see anybody that looked like me. And it was a lot of people down there. And it was, I think it was a good experience for me because I was proud to see people, and I think all the people that was there were celebrating because that's where he came from, and they're celebrating the history, but that's not what I was always taught. And so that was a good experience for me to actually have. But what I've also learned is that how do we continue to support each other in the celebratory spaces, educational spaces, and build and create to support these spaces that sustained us versus keep taking all our energy and fighting against what is draining us.
That's an interesting way. I'm gonna have to sit with that later. I'm gonna sit with that one later. That's a great answer. Tell us a little bit more about like Multicultural Fest. I'll see if I can get this out. Maybe I'll see if I can get this done quick and.
Yeah, that's like this weekend.
It's
actually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But my event actually is Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for the youth. So, but Multicultural Festival is every year. I'm actually coming about, and I actually send you the booklet that we have, like an informational booklet, Black Voters Impact Initiative. Every year in August, we try to get this informational book out. Because if I tell you come to Black Policy Day, you're like, what is that? Is that only for Black people? I've never seen that. Is it Black people here? And no, Black Policy Day is not only for Black people. Black Voters Impact Initiative is not only for Black people. But we understand a lot of intentional spaces is not meant for Black people, people of color, or people that continuously are excluded out. Traditionally, we're just excluded out. So this is just an intentional space to make us feel safe and heard along with everyone else. It is not exclusive, it is inclusive. But it's definitely intentional because we don't have a lot of spaces. And when I went down, as I brought up to John Henry, when I spoke to people, and I'm going to be candid, I did ask the question, like, it's no Black people down here, like, and you're celebrating a Black man. I was kind of surprised. And I spoke to an organizer, an older white man that said, we don't see color. We just support. And when he said that, I was like, that's a privilege. Because I wish I can say I don't see color, but the world doesn't let me not see color. They remind me I'm a Black woman. They remind me I'm a Black person. They remind me I'm a person that was not prepared to navigate certain spaces. So I have no choice but to see color because I'm constantly reminded. And some people say, we don't see color. And that's a privilege that, that we have to be mindful of. When you can say, I don't see color, that's a privilege because many people are reminded of their color, or even their class.
Very true.
Facts.
I know, because that's very... Because I've heard people say that, like, of course, I'm a non-binary person, so my experience is centered around being non-binary, which I look like a woman, I have vocalize like a woman, so often I can just pass. But I've definitely heard that, I don't see gender, and like, that's because you're not looking.
They didn't have to look.
Yeah, they didn't have to look. And I mean, it is a privilege. I guess I got the dumb white question to ask. How do we address that?
I mean, I think we need to have some conversations because a lot of times we get frustrated with each other because of our behaviors, but there's no learning spaces. There's no conversations. And I think we need to learn how to communicate without being defensive, because if you are defensive to someone, they cannot hear what you're saying. Our brain, first job is to to make us safe, and if someone is making you feel uncomfortable, you cannot learn from them. You cannot. So how could we learn how to embrace our deficits? How could we learn how to challenge the beliefs we have inside of us? Because there's really a lot of beliefs that we was born and raised with that makes us uncomfortable to create these intentional spaces. But we have to talk to each other. No one, I believe this because this is what I'm taught. You believe this because of your experiences, and your experiences may not agree with my experiences. But if we don't understand each other, we can't create experience for each other. Just like when you go into the shoe store. When you go into the shoe store, it is room for every aisle and every size.
And every style.
And so whatever your size is, you go in that space. You don't go in an aisle that doesn't fit you, but the shoe store have space. So how could we all create lanes that it'll be space for everybody? Imagine you go in the store and they say, we only sell size 10. We only sell size 8. No, there are different sizes for different people. And so if we can look at these differences we have, but see, you can't if you don't know what aisle you supposed to belong in. I know what size shoe I wear. You know what size shoe you wear. But imagine going to the shoe store and you don't know what shoes you wear. You don't know what size you wear. Right. The frustration of you having, not knowing what lane you in. So how do we create spaces? Everybody has a lane. And if the lane does not involve your living of life, it does not involve what you have to do, then you can go over there. Stay in that lane. And the injustices that happen in the world and the people that we have to deal with that we cannot eliminate, that may not support us, guess what? That's what bridges are built for. Do you know every bridge is built because structures could not be moved, but yet we need to make place to go to and fro? So how do we create bridges in the spaces where we can't change these systems? We can't change the people that's in office. But we can create bridges among ourselves, among our resources, to make sure that we can still survive in the conditions that we have to be in.
I'm going to leave that pause. I'm just going to leave this pause.
I mean, and it's okay.
I'll leave space to kind of digest that. So, can you tell us a little bit about the experience of organizing? Like, what are some things like you might do differently now? Something that if somebody out there was like, you know what, I would like to bring together a group of people and get involved in civic manners, where would they even begin?
Well, like with Black Voters Impact Initiative, we embrace and educate, and most importantly, try to help people to be civically engaged. But I think the most important, when people say meet people where they are, that's important. Because when you talk about civic engagement, people don't, a lot of people, especially people that have been harmed from the system, don't even see how they can be a change in civic engagement. So you got to first meet people where they are. And I don't know, who your friends, who your co-workers, who you go to church with, who you fellowship with, who's your family, who you work with. These are the little conversations that we start having. And if you look at the history of any movements, many movements started at a kitchen table. We just see the end of it when it's everybody, but I think we all have a light to share. And if you don't know what your light is, get it turned on. Work on yourself. That's the first organizer we got to do. Don't externally do organizing until we do some internal organizing. What works for you? And I think there's a lot of, some people call me an organizer, and I do that, but that term carries a lot of negativity that a lot of us should not have. Like, you got to have a bunch of people. You got to burn yourself out. You got to keep going. I don't believe in that. I am an organizer, but most importantly, I'm a restorative practitioner.
I heard something the other day that I just want to shoehorn here. Like, sometimes the spirits speak directly to us. And I was listening to something and somebody said, exhaustion is not a personality trait.
It's not. And if I'm not showing up in good condition, what am I doing? Bleeding on the people? Or I'm helping you, but I'm hurting you? And we know a lot of harm comes unintentionally. So your most important job, if you feel you are human that is called to care about other humans in spite of your condition, because some people do for people because they have extra and they can.
Right.
Great. But some of us is called to do for us in spite of. We have to save ourselves. We have to save each other. We don't have the privilege of turning off our jobs and the needs of the people. But the most important thing we can do as organizers is first work with yourself. Do something, see what works for you. What brings you joy? What helps you elevate? What gives you light? And then start building around that. See if you can find other people that have some like semblance of that. Or if you don't know what that is yet, maybe you can connect with somebody that do give you some joy, that do kind of help you figure out what this thing is, and kind of connect with them. I think we have a very individualistic, I don't know if you call it capitalist, individualistic, I don't know what term they use, but we all think, and because of our personal traumas, and I can speak for myself, that we don't trust people. Or from our experiences, we don't trust people. But the thing is that a lot of times we don't have clear communication of expectations. And many of times we're not sure what we want to do, so we may not connect to the right people and things. But that shouldn't stop us from continue to grow and to connect to those people and those things. So we get our internal right, and you start working a little bit with the people around you, and next thing you know, we be a community saving our communities, which I think that's what we are supposed to be. You start from the family, you keep growing, and we be the light that we are looking for somebody to be.
Can we talk a little bit more, because I know you gave an amazing speech. It's funny because I was taking notes during the interfaith conference, during your speech, about cultivating joy as a practice. And you're like, number one. And of course, I've got ADHD, so I thought I just missed you saying like number 2 or 3, so I'm just like numbering them as I go. And you're like, okay, number 2, and I've got like 5 things written down. Can you talk a little bit more about how you've developed your joy?
Well, I developed my joy because I was able to, in spite of all the traumatic experiences I had as a child, and also the inherited traumatic behaviors that I have inherited, beliefs and thoughts and things not only from my family but from society, I was able to tap into my purpose and my joy from the divine. And like I said, it might not be your shoe size. You may not be someone that has a divine gift in spite of all this hardship you went through life. It's just something in you that keeps driving you, or something in you that takes you to a place you didn't prepare for. I'm one of those people. And so I've learned the importance of, as we was talking earlier about faith, of believing this internal voice, and many of us don't have people to help grow this voice, especially if we're different. Even our family that love us, they might be like, oh, they may not have the capacity, the spiritual intelligence, the financial resources to help support this gift and this thing in us. And even though I can't say it was one person, life just kind of the long way. How some people say we took the long journey around. Life had it to where I took the long journey around, where I was able to connect to my purpose, like what I'm good at. I'm not good at a lot of stuff. And I'm Dr. Smith. I can tell you what I'm good at. And I don't mind telling you what I'm not good at, because I figured out what I'm good at. And I think if we all, in spite of whatever trauma, in spite of your life experience, in spite of what you don't have, if we connect to that purpose, that giving, and this is a shoe size of life. This doesn't apply for everybody. Everybody doesn't have this calling. All of us are not in this space of, I can't do what my experiences make me feel like I should do.
Yeah.
And I can't do what the people that's empowered doing, like what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
It's this lane for us, and I believe that, and I believe one of my purposes is to kind of grow and learn in that, be an example of that, and teach that. And I believe if we get a little nurture and a little validation, people would do great things. I know many humans, even like the foster system, they get cared for, meaning they get their food, their shelter, and clothing and direction. Right. But if a human does not get validation of who are you, what you supposed to do in this world that's been dark before any of us was born? How do you be a light? How do you connect? How do you survive? How do you grow? And that's different for different people, depending on your lineage, your purpose, what you came from. That's different for, like we said, the shoe store is different sizes. So if people know their size and their purpose, we can survive. And trust me, and I think that's why, God, the gods, the team, the angels, everything, life, I think has allowed me to experience some of the worst things humans can experience as kids, because those things, if they're not nurtured and cared for, yes, we will lose our minds. Yes, we will not be access to society. Yes, we'll grow up and be on opioids. Yes, we'll grow up and be dysfunctional adults, because these things we had a lot of traumas and no growth in our purpose. But if you had stuff happen to you, but you have some water in that purpose and that light, you can be a light stick, a match in a dark place and still be powerful. And so, so that's what I learned. That's what my gift is. And I think if we all of us that's fighting a fight, maybe learn how to do some building, some gardening to ourselves, to our people, we will survive more, I think, healthy and peaceful in conditions that we can't change.
This is one of the things I've asked on every episode so far. What, if you were speaking directly to a lawmaker, if you could get them to pass one piece of legislation that could improve West Virginia, that could make our lives better, what would it be?
Well, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to be honest, I think in January of this year, I went to the legislative meeting. I have heard of clean water not being in West Virginia. I can't say I didn't hear about it, maybe somewhere, but I was at a legislative meeting and I was talking to Reverend Bradley, and he was telling me about the conditions that people have experienced over 10 years with unclean water. And it was an experience that I had with him that was really bothering to me, because I couldn't believe, with all the resources and money and things, and even if it's not flowing in my community, I know it exists.
Right.
Why is it people that don't have clean water?
I want to say something about a Ferris wheel.
And so I think, and then, and I have talked to a couple of lawmakers, hey, why? And they're like, oh, it's complicated, and this and that, and money, and da. But I know that anything that wants to be done gets done. They find money for everything else. They find money for stuff we didn't even know can exist. Resources happen all the time. So I don't think that we live in a world that we don't have enough resources to do what we need. It's just that, is these resources going to be allocated? And so I wish for West Virginia, there's many things that we need, but I wish everyone here has clean water. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we pay the highest rate for water and sewer in the nation. Help that make sense. I didn't do a bunch of research, but from what I heard, and I know I pay a lot of money in water and I pay sewer. And I'm from New York City. We don't pay water and sewer. I didn't pay water and sewer until I came to West Virginia. And I never had any issue with drinking water out the faucet from where I'm at. But I'm in Charleston, which I think we have clean water, but I've been buying water for the last 11 years since we had the chemical spill in Charleston.
Yeah.
So I had to buy a water machine, and so and I know that we don't have, because I have a neighbor that's on the east end that he has got water coming out his tank that's like black. And I know as humans, if it doesn't affect us, it doesn't concern us.
Right.
People that's fighting for AIDS, people that's fighting for sex trafficking, people that's fighting for certain things in some way has personally affected them, and that's a fire for them. And that's why our conversations, and we need to educate each other, and we can't wait till it comes to our door to be our issue. We all have to be each other's keeper. And so I hope this year, more people get help with clean water in West Virginia, minimum. I mean, we have so many things. I mean, we have our school system that's an issue.
So many.
And I know West Virginia is a state that relied heavily on federal funding for Medicaid and SNAP. And so if federal funding is not coming, what is our state doing to supplement that? And it may not be with all the lawmakers. It may be with us. I think you see in the front of my yard, I'm scared of bugs. I don't like the dirt, but I'm trying to grow a garden. And you see I grow a garden in the front where someone can come and kind of water my garden. They can help my garden. That's a true little community garden. I mean, how do we start thinking of ways of us helping with the resources, with a little bit of resources we have, to start coming together, protecting ourselves and trusting one another, doing the internal healing we need, and trusting one another to help us survive in these conditions that are maybe new for some people, but that have been going on for decades for others.
That is not the answer I thought you were going to give. I'm going to perfectly. I thought you were going to talk about the Crown Act. I know that was something that they talked about Black Policy Day.
Crown Act is very important, and another thing is sad to this day that someone could be fired or discriminated against because of the texture or the stylage of their hair. Absolutely ridiculous. But I also know, because of the leadership that is going on right now, that the leadership is toned not to even hear certain concerns. They're not. I mean, that's the reality of it. And so what we can do is maybe help local municipalities maybe pass ordinances, maybe can help other areas and try to educate people and lawmakers, and local people to adopt this in their communities to kind of protect at a local level as we can. But currently with the administration we have, they made it very clear certain things they're not going to listen to. So am I going to take the little bit of energy and the very little, we don't even have any resources to fight them to listen to something that they clearly told me they're not going to listen to? Or maybe I can go with them with a conversation that they might listen to. Clean water. So hopefully we can get and have administration that all issues for all community members matters. But the reality is it's never been like that. And I'm grateful for all of those that continue to fight and create space about issues that we may get a law, we may get executive order, and then somebody else come and erase it. And even with voting rights and voting acts and discrimination with that, like, why will we be in 2026 and still having issues with people voting? Why would you create barriers? Why are we doing all this redlining? Why are we... all these things are still going on.
They are.
And for decades, I don't come from an apolitical family, so I don't come from a family that politically was educated and active. These are skills and things that I have adopted in maybe the last 10 years of my life, being educated and realizing that me adopting the rhetoric of your vote don't matter, you can't do nothing, it don't matter, me adopting that and living to that, to like, oh yeah, maybe I can, but maybe 10 of us, 20 of us can.
Right.
Maybe some of us can go, maybe I might not run for office, but maybe I can support Dottie if she's running for office, and using a different mindset to survive in this system, because a lot of us, we don't get involved because we can't see the results of, and a lot of us don't have the capacity. The legislative is going on when people at work. Right. Some people can't afford to take off of work to go talk to their legislator. Be realistic.
Right.
So how many people that can talk to their legislators, but are they talking about things that we need to hear, like you said, the Crown Act? How many allies we have, right, or lobbyists, because we don't have no lobbyists up there. We don't have the resources for that.
Right. I think we had 3 Democrats and 1 in the House and 1 in the legislature or something.
And then I heard that they was against it because many of them are business owners and they thought people was going to sue them. And now listen, but this is teaching me that they have, from their experiences, they have a perspective that their truth hasn't been expanded from. So instead of fighting them and be like, you're wrong, like, why do you believe that it's going to harm you to give us the right for me to come with my hair locks? I have locks, which
right,
is a hairstyle that started the Crown Act and being discriminated from. So what is in their mindset and their experiences that they believe that by you giving me the right to wear my hair, even if I want to wear my hair wrapped, that it's okay, that's not going to interfere with me doing my job? What is in their belief to make them believe that this is not right, that I shouldn't have this right? And then some people, truthfully, and I think we all as Americans, wherever you stand, need to understand this, some people live off the oppression of others. It's been like that since this country was built. And some people, I met a lot of progressive people that's like, no, the system is good and we all need to and I'm going to fight for all of us to be in the system. Because My family are good, and I don't believe everybody in the system is bad. It's a bad system that good people exist in, but don't have the power to change the bad system. And so the good people that survive in the bad system want everybody to be included. So they want to fight for everybody to be included.
Right, because they're trying to fix
But what I tell them, if your Aunt Dolly wants to live with you, your Aunt Dolly, and your Aunt Dolly lives in a wheelchair, and you want your Aunt Dolly to live with you, but your bathroom is on the second floor, can Aunt Dolly live with you? It doesn't matter if you want her to. And Aunt Dolly needs somewhere to live, but because of the structure of how you live, she can't live in there because she has a wheelchair. Your bathroom is on the second floor. And let's just expand our imagination a little bit for you not to understand. You don't understand how you run up and down the stairs, how Aunt Dolly can't. So you're trying to say, Aunt Dolly, no, you can live with me. She can't. The system was never built for everybody. Was it? And even though you live in that housing structure, you need to accept the fact that you live in a space everybody can't live in. And it's okay, because we're not telling you that you got to vacate your house. Now, if you really want our married to live with you, guess what you got to do? You got to move.
I hate to cut us off because I really love this episode. My camera is overheating, as is apparently tradition now.
Oh, well, you better not let that overheat now. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So, yeah, I do a group at, I mentor girls at high school, and this is my group right here. It's called Exploring Me. But this is a little thing that I teach them. I teach them to focus on what's in their control and not, because if you think about it, we taught to talk about what people doing, what people say, or that don't matter. Focus on what's in your control. This is what I teach young girls, and teach myself too.
Get a better shot of that.
Yeah, and teach myself too, because we be out here worrying about stuff we can't control. Focus on what you can. So yeah, mindset matters. Mindset matters. I think a lot of us have these spaces among us, but we are so busy and distracted or hurt or whatever we are that we're not tapping into our human self. So we just take those skills and have a meal with people and have conversations with people and get aligned with people, those basic things. That's how we start to build out and have conversations that we can help ourselves, help our communities.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Sorry, y'all, this is going to be a short episode because my camera's overheating. Just, equipment is it does what equipment does.
But at least it's giving you a warning.
It did. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
All right, y'all, watch out for the deer and look out for each other.
Thank y'all for coming. If you think this work is worthwhile and you've enjoyed yourself or felt like you've learned something important, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. I know I usually do a lot more editing Dottie in as almost a bit, and I think it's great. I think it's fabulous. But I also felt like I didn't want to interrupt any part of this conversation. So I want to thank Dr. Shanequa Smith one more time. It's kind of, when I'm doing this, I am kind of just like putting a request out there into like the ether, it feels like sometimes, because some people I know, and it's a lot easier to conceive of them wanting to be on the show. And other times, I kind of aim high and pray. And this is one of the times where that paid off, and I really, really appreciate the time and energy that Dr. Shanequa Smith shared with us. So, yeah, that's all you're gonna get out of editing, Dottie. Bye. Or what's my tagline? Oh, yes. Watch out for the deer and look out for each other.